All right, well, welcome. My name is Colonel Bernie Reichling. Most of you know me or have met you before. So welcome to the New Madrid Project Office. We established this office, sir, in July. The original purpose of this office was to basically have an information office here to talk about claims process, about the way forward here in the floodway. And we have now turned this into a project office. You met Jack over here, who is my resident engineer, and Major Cornelison behind you is our project engineer. And we have moved from Crothersville over to here to start managing this project in the floodway. So we really tried to lean forward in terms of that. So welcome, sir. We're going to let other folks talk, and then we'll come back to where we're at in the floodway. So I'd like to introduce Ferg Hunter.
Senator, my name is Ferg Hunter, and I'm president of St. John's Levee and Drainage District. I have two other board members here, Pete Story and John Joe Bryant. And we know you're on a tight schedule today, but there are 2 or 3 issues that I'd like to talk to you about and get your input, see if you might help us in some areas. The first thing you may have, and let me say St. John's, back from where all this problem started, a lot of issues have gone on, but we are kind of looking forward to see what we can do in the future to help the citizens, the people in this watershed area, in this area. And to that end, the Corps right now, they have their plans is to build the levee back at a temporary level of 51 feet. You may or may not have heard that figure.
No, I've heard that figure.
That figure.
I've talked to them about it.
Let me put that figure in a little perspective. You know, you say 51 feet, 62 feet, what does that mean? 62 and a half feet is the authorized level, the authorization for this levee in this area. And for 75 years, 62 and a half feet has given the farmers, the landowners, people that work and play in this area, unprecedented flood control. For 75 years, we've never had a major flood since 1937. 51 feet is arrived every other year on average. Now, Senator, you're a landowner in that part of the world, you're a farmer, you go into your banker, I need to borrow $1 million to farm this 3,000, 4,000 acres, and oh, by the way, I've got a 50-50 chance of losing this crop. That is, to St. John's, to all the people that we represent, that's just unacceptable. We have got to get this level back to the authorized height of 62 and a half as quickly as we can. We know that takes time, we understand that. Probably as importantly, it takes money. And I think that's one of the Corps' big issues right now is the money. To that end, we would ask you, in the House, Mrs. Emerson, Representative Emerson, with a lot of her colleagues, has passed an emergency bill to help the Mississippi River flood situation. I think $1 billion. And in that, we think that there is monies for this fix to the levees back to its permanent height of 62 and a half. And we would ask, when you go back and the Senate is back in session, to help us in any way you can with your colleagues to take the House's bill and get that passed. I think most of that money is set aside for the Corps, for the MRT project, and projects like ours. Of all the people up and down the river, no one sustained damages like the people in the floodway, where they blew the levees, where we had flooding, where they lost crops, where they lost homes, grain bins, and everything. And we would hope that that would be a priority, the #1 priority of those monies. The next thing I'd like to visit just a little bit about, and I think there's several people in this room that you're going to talk about. Your predecessor Senator Bond was very instrumental in getting into the Department of Agriculture in NRCS monies for emergency wetlands project. And 2 years ago, we started cleaning out our ditches, Senator, and did a wonderful job. In our district, we were able to clean out every foot that we had, and they were wonderful. They were in the best shape they have been since they've been dug. And then lo and behold, this spring, 1/3 of the Mississippi was diverted down through the watershed. There went all our work. And I think you'll visit with folks about that issue, but we would ask if through the Department of Agriculture into NRCS, that maybe you would help to get that EWP program reinstated. We've got millions of tons of silt, sediment, snags and everything in these ditches that we had in perfect shape. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for being in New Madrid, taking the time to look at our concerns, to consider them, maybe help the folks here. And with that, Senator, I'd like to introduce Lynn Bach. He is our attorney for the Drainage District, has been for ever and a day, and he might help you. But thank you, Senator.
Senator, I think Tom originally asked me to speak somewhat to put this into a historical perspective. But this morning I got online and read the Corps' environmental assessment that they,
It just came out.
it just came out Friday, and that kind of changed my focus. Is what this environmental assessment proposes, and their preferred alternative, is to build a levee different than what we had. We had a clay levee all the way to 62.5 or 60, wherever it was up in the floodway. But what they propose is to build our 51-foot levee, and then on top of that, put sand and cap that with clay. Supposedly, this would make the floodway easy to operate because they would be able to blow that clay cap off. Well, that's a mouthful. And put the floodway in operation. I went and looked, and this is what's great about the internet, and looked at the Corps of Engineers manual on levee construction. It's EM 1110-2-1913. It's their manual. This is how you build levees. And when you're going to build on an existing levee, one of the things you look at is the material that you have to make sure it bonds properly. And I assure you, sand does not bond properly with clay. They do not, in this thing, even propose building our levee back in clay. That's not even one of their possibilities or alternatives. It's just not there.
Carl, I'm sure you're gonna talk about that.
And the various flood control acts from 28, 36 on have all said that we're supposed to have, floodways supposed to have the same level of protection as everybody else in the MR&T project, except for the fact that we have a floodway. I don't think that a sand levee on top of a clay levee gives us that type of protection that Congress has directed the Corps to do so. It's almost kind of scary, and I don't think, and I think if you inquire, that you're gonna find a project levee in the lower Mississippi Valley that's built in this manner. I just don't. So that's kind of the new direction that we're gonna have to take, because, and frankly, I was really disappointed that the Corps proposed this in this document and never came up here and discussed it with my levee board, LD3 up in Mississippi County, the affected parties. It's just, that's really disappointing that they didn't come and say, hey, what do you think of this plan before we publish it in the EA?
What else? Let's talk about the sand clay cap on the levee. Nobody talked to me about this either. We've had lots of discussions with the Corps about building this back and getting it back to and one thing you didn't mention, well, you did say, because 11 times out of the last 20 years, it's been over 51 feet. So you said have the time,
Yeah.
that's right. But lots of discussions, I hadn't heard this, there must be some, well, one, probably would have been a good idea to alert everybody that this was the plan, but two, why is this the plan?
Sir, the sand core levy is a more efficient, effective way to operate the floodway, as well as it is more economical to restore the sections that were executed during the operation. We have done an enormous amount of research with our engineers, consulting with other engineers within the Mississippi Valley Division, and the sand core levy will provide the same level of protection that the 62.5 clay levy as referred to did. And that is what our engineers have come up with, and we have been in constant communication with Rock Island District, who is our experts on developing this levy, and so that is where our chief engineer is wanting to go to.
And the sand would have a clay cap,
Yes, sir. So
the
basically, what
sand would come right out of the river, or close.
we haven't developed on how to bring in that sand, but that's the most economical way. For example, on the blue hole that's currently there, we are looking at bringing a dredge up that would bring clean sand from the river into that hole to fill it, because that's the most economical and most efficient method to fill that hole in at this point.
I guess the part I didn't like about that was the first part, the most efficient, effective way to operate the floodway. I don't, there's a reason that we're having this discussion, because now we got to put the levee back up. The more easily you tear it down, the more likely you are to use it, I think. So we've got two problems here. I guess I've got one on efficient, effective, and Mr. Bach's got one on whether it really is the same level of protection or not. And then our third problem would be not even having, what would be the reason not to do the clay levee that was there? And the part of the plan is, this is here, it can be imploded, it can open the floodway, hadn't happened since 1937, that had been the plan. But I think an equal part of the plan was then the levee comes back up to create the floodway option again. So why are we not taking it back up the way it went up the first time?
Well, I think that was 1937 technology. We're in 2011. We've come a long way in building levees. We are looking at, again, a more efficient, effective way of building that levee in a more economical fashion. The EA that Lynn refers to lays out several options, sir. Many of those are cost prohibitive. So we're really looking at how much is it going to take to rebuild this levee. And doing the sand core levee is about $20 million extra on what we've already put forward for the 51 level by 30 November. And that is the sand core levee.
Do you have an estimate on the clay levee?
I do not have that off the top of my head. I'll have to get that for you.
Let's pursue this more. Do you all have other questions on this topic?
Are there any other levees built like this?
There are levees built like this, and they're in the upper parts of the upper miss.
Have they failed?
I don't know, Pete. I can't tell you if they failed or not.
What happens, you get, say, a 55-foot river. You've got an animal that's burrowed into that sand core, and then a wheel wash on top of that. Is that not a disaster looking for a place to happen?
Well, if we're inspecting the levees like we should be, and we're doing the proper maintenance, that should not be an issue.
Does the operational plan of the spillway not call already for complete restoration of the levee as it stood prior to its demolition?
The operation plan will not change.
But does it say that? It's my
The current
understanding it
operation
does.
plan that's approved by the Mississippi River Commission has not changed. The only thing that I have directed is to revise that plan to include a phase 4, which is what we term the military. After you execute a mission, what do you do to come back in and fix and handle all the other issues that are associated, basically what we're going through now.
I feel like the bottom line of this, the sand core is fine if you don't have your life invested behind it. That's the bottom line of it.
Is that levee as strong during an earthquake as a clay levee?
I would have to bring up Tom Minyard, and I got people here taking notes, and if you give us your name, Major Corneliuson right there will get you the answer.
Cool.
Can't answer that question, but I'll tell you that all these levees are earthen. If we have an earthquake, they're all gonna crack.
All right.
So, you know, that's just the fact of the matter right now, with an earthquake.
Colonel Reichlin, you had stated a moment ago that most of the levees that they had done this way were in the northern end of the Mississippi Valley. Is the hydraulic pressure, given the width and the strength of our river down here and the large amount of drainage that we get south of Illinois, is the hydraulic pressure the same on those levees up there that would be here?
The design that the engineers are currently, that our engineers are currently working on would design that levee based on those pressures. This levee actually would be, as I've been told, wider because of the issues with the sand and the clay cap. So it would be somewhat wider, but it would still have the same characteristics and same performance level that a clay, as the previous levee did.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I will make one more point. Even if you could prove to us that Rock Island levee is strong, and this just makes the operation of the floodway more efficient. You have one crevasse, the middle crevasse and the big oak crevasse. That was an absolute disaster when you offloaded. It was called an inflow-outflow crevasse. It never outflowed, it only inflowed. And Senator, you're gonna go see the type of damage that crevasse did to the surrounding area. And I can't think of anyone that can come up with an engineering reason to ever operate that crevasse again. It makes, especially if you're gonna build the levee back to that same length of a hole with this sand levee, and then allow it, and blow it, and allow it to overtop, you're gonna have the same type of damage. So if even if you build these levees in how you propose, that particular section of levee should be built back in clay. Because there's no reason to operate that middle crevasse, absolutely no engineering reason.
There's
That
actually no
middle-
engineering
that
reason
middle
to operate any
crevasse-
of it.
That middle crevasse provided much needed relief and pressure on the levee system on the other side of the river.
And I don't
We would
buy
have lost the Fulton County levee if we had not executed that. In terms of the inflow, outflow, you are correct. We did not see any outflow come from that. So the floodway, as it was operated, performed as designed.
I know that's the party line, but I don't buy it. And the other part of that is you're not gonna fix our levees back to 62 feet because you're gonna go fix the Fulton County levee first. So there's no reason to protect it now. You're gonna have all the protection you need over on the other side of the river. I mean, that's what we've been told, that you're gonna have to go in and do the work over in Fulton County before you build our levees back. And so if you're gonna do that work over there, then restore our levee, and there's no reason to you operate that middle crevasse. It was not in I think 86, it was not in the engineering plan at all. You had the upper crevasse and the lower crevasse, and that was all. Then in 86, they added this middle crevasse, and they were told by area engineers at that time that it was not gonna work the way y'all thought it worked, and it did.
Right now, sir, there is a interagency review going on in terms of.
So we're gonna go look at this on page 1 today, right?
So Mr. James will be a part of that, in which the MRC looks at this system and evaluates how did it operate, what changes need to be made in the system. Am I right, sir?
So there's another issue concerning natural overtop. If you take 11 miles at 60.5 with natural overtop, you can actually, if the river got high enough, you would actually outperform what they did in the crevasses. We've been trying to get for years, just let it be a natural overtop and maintain that grade up there. picked up, you would have picked up this time, if the river was, have gotten supposedly as high as it was supposed to get, you would have picked up more CFS out of the river than what they picked up by blowing the levee.
You're saying 60 and a half as opposed to 62 and a half?
Well, you've got the fuse plug sections are built to 60.5, and the rest of the levee is the 62 and a half. But that's stretched right across the river from Carroll, and that's the 60.5. So why not just let it naturally overtop?
Well, that's what Joanne and I advocated at the time. We tried to convince General Walsey that it's the better way to do this.
We would have only had an inflow of approximately 10 levies somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, what kind of damage, we've never gotten that much water down through here. But we don't think, we've been able to get back in the fields quicker, and maybe not had near as much damage if we would have been allowed.
Well, let me respond to a couple of things. And Tom Schulte's here, of course. Ryan Cliftonstein's been here quite a bit, which is our chief of staff in the state. And we're trying to do our best to be helpful here. Brad Logger, by the way, Senator Logger from Northeast Missouri, is traveling with me for a day or two. He's the chairman of the Commerce Committee in the state senate. So that's this guy over here. Joanne, was that an emergency bill or was it an attachment to the ag appropriations bill?
Energy and water is actually a section of energy.
It's section of energy and water. Well, we'll work on that. I was hoping it was in the ag probes bill because I'm the top Republican on that committee. And we're marking that bill up right now. And I thought we'd maybe get a shot at that in conference, but I'm also on energy and water. So I'll work on that. And we're trying our best to get the, and we obviously have a lower number than, we have a higher number than the House, but a lower number than we're spending this year to mark to with the ag probes bill. One of our priorities is to try to get as much money as we can in the watershed emergency projects and in the conservation emergency projects, which also could be used here. And I'm not quite sure yet how successful we'll be there at the end of the day, but it's a top priority to try to get it done. And so, that is an